Welcome back, friends of our channel. We really appreciate you joining us on our doggy adventures. This video takes us back to northern Italy for a long weekend's visit. Let's go! We woke up to a pretty grey, miserable day. One of those days where we're more in the clouds rather than above them or below them. But we carried on and finished the packing, put the stand-up paddle board out just in case, and reassured a nervous Arthur that we wouldn't leave him behind. Once Arthur, Jacob and the bags were packed, we headed from Liechtenstein towards the pass between Switzerland and Italy. Just over 3.5 hours later, we were coming into our first overnight stop in the city of Bergamo, and we were welcomed with glorious weather. We were going to stay overnight in the Città Alta, which is the old upper city that you can see up on the hill. Up we climbed and then passed through the gates that took us into the old city proper. Now to park our car and find our accommodation for the night. As usual, Rainer used his super skill in finding us an unusual but reasonably priced place right in Bergamo. It had been tastefully renovated, keeping as much as possible of the original beams and the wall frescoes as possible. The small terrace overlooked one of the Città Alta squares. We dropped our bags and headed out to explore the town. There's the balcony to our room from the square below. What a great location! We wandered around the town and found other squares and markets and narrow streets to explore. Around until we found our way into the main square. Isn't this a nice place to have a part of the Bergamo Public University? You wouldn't be short of a cafe to pop out to between lectures, would you? If you haven't already noticed, there were dogs everywhere. Behind this loggia are 3 religious edifices. On the right is the decorative Corleone chapel dating from the 15th century. The plainer sandstone church to its left is the Basilica Santa Maria Maggiore dating from the 12th century. And to its left is the Duomo, a 15th century rebuilding of a cathedral dating to the 9th century. I didn't get into either of the churches as there were services underway for the Easter weekend. But I did go into the Colleoni chapel. Colleoni was a feared Italian mercenary who was famous for having had 3 testicles. These are featured on his coat of arms, and in the chapel it's considered good luck to rub them. No, I didn't, so I'll just have to take my chances on the luck. This marble feature is a Meridiana Monumental, which traces the path of the sun's rays throughout the year. It also shows the zodiac signs and tidal movements. Around the corner we found a crowd around this shop, and it's not hard to see why. Everything looks delicious. Near the end of what had been a long day, we settled into a cafe bar for a recuperative water and a sundowner. Arthur settled on my lap for a bit of people and dog watching. I love how intently he watches the world. The next morning we were up relatively early and got our car out of the parking so we could move away from Bergamo and towards Lake Iseo, where we would spend the rest of our long weekend. The small hill roads we encountered made us feel quite at home. We had to cross over several hills and valleys to find the lake, which is a bit more remote and less well known than its bigger cousins, such as Como, Maggiore and Lugano. And here's the lake. Now to find our accommodation, which was about halfway down the right-hand side of the lake. We were a little too early to check in, so we drove to the far end of the lake to get an overview of the entire area. And then we headed back to pick up our keys and settle in. The apartment wasn't anything fancy. It was outside that counted. An amazing and safe garden for Arthur and Jacob to play in, and views and easy access to the lake and the surrounding area. Next morning, our first day trip was to the quite large island in the middle of Lake Iseo. Our plan was to walk to the church at the highest point of the island. The walk up started through the village and then wandered up through olive groves, farms, and another smaller village. Along the way, we were afforded glimpses of ever more beautiful views. At the top, once again, we couldn't go into the church as there was clearly an Easter service underway. But we did enjoy the views and a sit down before our descent. On the way down, I could enjoy the views even more since I wasn't gasping for breath. A recent lung infection had still been holding me back on the way up. From here we had a good view of the church on the summit from where we'd just come from. And it's interesting to note that there's no road up to that church, and so all the people that were there at that service had walked up to it. At the bottom, before we headed back to our side of the lake, we found a restaurant and enjoyed a typically wonderful Italian meal. Of course, after all their running to and fro, the boys deserved a snack as well. After a well-deserved night's rest, we were all up early to meet the challenge of our next walking adventure. This one involved a lot more walking, which also included kilometers of these strategically placed stones. They were okay on the way up, but they really came into their own on the way back down, making the descent much more comfortable. There are always small shrines here and there to mark your progress. Finally, our goal was in sight. It was some special rock formations in the gully below the village up in front of us. But first we had quite a distance to wind our way down into the bottom of the gully. But once we reached the bottom of the valley, the boys really appreciated that they could enjoy a short, cool, watery break. Then it was upwards again. There we made it. We found the pyramid rock formations. The pyramid structures are formed by erosion because the very durable stones that are the caps on each pyramid protects the softer material underneath it from eroding at the same rate as the rest around it. Once we had explored around the rock formations, we wanted to head up to the village that was above us to see if we could find some lunch. Arthur was incredibly eager to get going again. We just couldn't believe how much energy he still had. He's amazing. Here's a better view of the pyramids from above. Finally, the village on the hill and possible food was within reach. We'd come such a long way up from the lake, and we deserved it. Well, we did find a place to eat. It may not look like much, but it was full of locals, and we found out why. The food was very good and very reasonably priced. Now for the long trek back to the lake. For most of the route we took a different way, one that took us through more fields and forest. It was cool and beautiful, especially as for much of the way we followed a friendly little stream. Finally, back to the lake. The water was freezing, and although Arthur could be tempted in for a quick dip, Jacob needed a little persuading. Thank you, friends, for watching our small adventure. Thank you also for subscribing and helping our channel to grow. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, as it puts no obligation on you but helps us a lot. I want this to be the year we reach 1,000 subs. Take care and see you soon.